going on, gardeners? It's Sunday, January 29th, and it is a gorgeous winter day here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, and it is hard to believe, but we are already starting our first seeds for our summer vegetable garden. That's why on today's video, I'm going to share with you why hot peppers are the first seeds that you should start every single year for your summer vegetable garden, as well as a complete guide on how to start them.
If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon storefront and spread shop in the video description for a list of the gardening products I use and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Peppers are subtropical plants, and as a result, they cannot tolerate frost or freeze. It will damage or kill them. However, they can tolerate chilly nights as long as it does not frost or freeze on the plants. So it is generally safe to plant our pepper transplants out into our garden as soon as we are beyond our last chance of frost and freeze. Now, when it comes to most varieties of sweet and mildly hot peppers, they will take about 10 days to germinate on a seedling heat mat. After germination, they will take about another 6 weeks before they are mature enough transplants to plant out into our garden. And you can follow this seed sowing schedule right here for the majority of sweet and mildly hot peppers that we grow. However, there is one exception. And that exception are your super hot peppers that come from tropical regions like Central America, the Caribbean, and Southeast Asia. Varieties like habanero peppers and ghost peppers and Trinidad scorpion peppers and Carolina reaper peppers. They can take the better part of a month to germinate. So for the purposes of this video, we will say for those varieties, they will take about 21 days to germinate on a seedling heat mat. And it's very important that you use a heat mat because they are so super tropical. Without one, they may never germinate at all. Now, once they germinate, they will have the same amount of time before they're a mature transplant as your other varieties of peppers. However, because the germination times are so long, it is very important that you start these very hot peppers earlier than your other ones. Your standard varieties of hot peppers, like your jalapenos, your cherry peppers, and your hot banana peppers, they are mildly spicy, so they will germinate in about a similar amount of time that your sweet peppers will germinate. But I do like growing some varieties of extra tropical peppers, like this super key pepper and this fish pepper. These will take several weeks to germinate. And of course, the seeds that I brought back from the Trinidad pimento pepper from the island of Martinique that I went several years ago, these have taken close to a month to germinate every single time. So we really need to start these early. So what I'm going to do in this video is start all of my hot peppers. Now, whether it's a jalapeno or something super tropical, I'm going to start them all at the exact same time. And then later, when I start my tomato seeds in about 2 weeks, I will start the rest of my sweet peppers alongside them. So I'm going to take you inside and show you what I think is the best way to start your hot peppers from seed. Now, in order to start your pepper seeds, you will want 2 pieces of equipment, and one of them is mandatory, one of them is optional but highly suggested. And if you're at all interested in obtaining these pieces of equipment to make things easy, I have them all linked in my Amazon storefront link down in the video description under the list Seed Starting Supplies. If you follow that, you can get these exact items shown in this video. Now, the mandatory piece of equipment that you must have is a seedling heat mat. If you are at all serious in growing anything from seed, you must have one of these seedling heat mats. Hot peppers require very warm soil temperatures to germinate that just aren't possible in most places in January unless you live in the tropics or something. So you have to have one of these if you want your seeds to come up. Now, I know money is tight right now for a lot of people, but these seedling heat mats are so easy to find and they're so cheap that there's really no excuse for anybody not to have one of them if they want to grow anything from seed. The second piece of equipment that I strongly recommend you invest in is one of these peat pellet greenhouses and these seed starting peat pellets. And the reason why I recommend you use these peat pellets to start your hot peppers in is because these are compressed, sterile, inert mediums. If you just go out and you buy potting mix and you fill some trays and start your seeds in them, you run the risk of fungus gnat eggs hatching, and a lot of those potting mixes are contaminated with some type of soil bacteria. These are sterile, and because your hot peppers have such a lengthy time to germinate, you really want to make sure that you start out with a completely sterile inert medium. This is not something like a cucumber plant that's going to germinate in 3 days, and in 3 weeks it'll be a nice, strong, healthy vine. You need to baby these for a long period of time, and that's why you want to begin with a sterile medium. Again, these are super cheap. These greenhouses are only a few dollars. These boxes of peat pellets are only a few dollars. You can pick them up at big box stores, or you can pick them up in my Amazon storefront. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to hydrate our peat pellets, and we're going to do that using very hot tap water. You don't want to use cold water because the peat will not absorb cold water. It is important that it starts out very hot. So we're going to pour this over our peat pellets, give them time to absorb the hot water, and then drain off any that is excess. And then we're going to let them cool down to room temperature, or at least until it's just warm to the touch before we plant our seeds. All of the peat pellets have absorbed the water and they're expanded to exactly what we want them to be. Now we're going to start pulling back this biodegradable membrane that is around all of the individual peat pellets, because now we want to start fluffing them up in order to make way for the seeds. Now the membrane has been pulled back, so we're going to begin fluffing up the peat medium. And to do that, I like using a chopstick. It is a great way to do this very easily and quickly, just to lightly fluff everything up so we can place all of our seeds, because hot pepper seeds will only need to be buried about 1/4 of an inch. So they sit very close to the top of the seedling starting mix and only require minimum cover. Now that all of our peat pellets have been prepped to plant the seeds, we need to make sure that we have everything labeled properly, and that can be challenging in peat pellets. So what I like to do is I like to draw up all of these circles, and then I label them 1, 2, 3, 4, and I mark the bases of my greenhouses 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's marked with a permanent marker on the bottom of each. That way I know how all of the peat pellets are oriented, and then I simply write in here what the individual names of the varieties are, and I'll hold on to this piece of paper until they germinate. Once they germinate, I'll take the peat pellets and I'll transplant them into larger containers and then give them physical tags so they never get mixed up again. But that is how I choose to label them. Any system, you can make your own, whatever works for you and makes sense in your mind. Just make sure that you have a way to adequately label them so you don't get them mixed up if you're planting multiple varieties. Now it's time to start planting our seeds. And again, I think the best tool to use for this overall is a chopstick. So what I have is I have my answer key here that has the order of all of my seeds that I'm going to plant them in, and then I have the packets oriented so they're in the same order. So we'll start off with this Emerald Fire Jalapeno. This is a brand new packet of seed. So these chopsticks are great at getting the corners started, and then you just pull the sticky part off. So what I like to do is I like to overseed my seed cells. So if I were to only put one seed in each of them, well, seeds generally only have about 80% germination or so. So I'm going to have a whole bunch of cells that won't come up if I were to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lick the tip of this chopstick, and then I can use that to grab the seeds, and I'm going to plant 2 seeds in each individual peat pellet. And now that those seeds have been placed, I'm going to put the excess seeds back inside the seed packet. I'm going to close it up, and I'm going to put a little bit of tape on it to hold it shut to make sure nothing spills. And then I'm going to move on to the next variety, which is Tabasco. And now I'm going to follow this exact same procedure for every single peat cell. Now that all of the seeds have been placed, we now need to bury them about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch deep. And guess what? We're going to go right back to that chopstick method, because it's great to just dig out a very little tiny hole and then press them down into the peat. Then we can fluff up the mix around it, and then once we make sure that everything is buried, we can just switch the chopstick over and then lightly tamp it down just to bury the pepper seeds. And again, we want to bury these shallow. Burying them deeply isn't really going to help us. And that's all there is to it, and we'll want to do that for every single one of these peat pellets. Now all of the seeds have been covered in peat and compacted, so I just want to add a few drops of water onto the tops of the peat pellets just to make sure that we keep them moist. And to do that, I like using a turkey baster because it makes the application really easy, but you don't need to be all that perfect with this. Just make sure that they're not sopping wet. The key to germination is going to be to keep these on a seedling heat mat and to keep them lightly moist but not wet, because if they're too wet, you can encourage the seeds to rot and then they may never germinate. Now that all of our seeds are planted and our peat pellets are at the perfect moisture, we're going to plug in our seedling heat mat. We are going to set our plants on top of the seedling heat mat in indirect light, and then we are going to place on top the greenhouse cover, and we want to make sure this greenhouse cover is locked into place because that is going to hold in the warmth and the moisture, and be sure that our peat pellets do not dry out and they stay at the perfect temperature for germination. Now, one thing that you are going to notice throughout this process is that a lot of condensation and moisture is going to form on the top of this peat pellet greenhouse dome. So it's absolutely mandatory that every single day you open your peat pellet dome and you drain off any moisture into the sink, because excess moisture is going to collect on top. You also need to make sure that you let fresh air into this greenhouse every single day, because if you never uncover this, you're not going to let in fresh air and you're going to encourage rot forming bacteria to form. So you need to let that fresh air in. Then every single day, since you're going to be popping the top off for about 5 minutes or so to let it vent, and you're going to be discarding the excess water in the sink, eventually these peat pellets are going to start getting a little dry. Then you're going to take your turkey baster or whatever you want to do and lightly moisten them again. It's very important that you keep them lightly moist but not wet. If they dry out, the seeds will not germinate, and if they stay too wet, you run the risk of the seeds rotting. So it's important that you check on them every day, let in that fresh air, and you maintain that perfect moisture balance. The biggest challenge you're going to run into when growing hot peppers from seed is that they are all going to germinate at different rates if you're growing multiple different varieties with varying hotness. Your jalapenos and cherry peppers are probably going to germinate in as little as 7 to 10 days. Your medium peppers like a Tabasco or a cayenne may take 10 to 14 days, and your super tropical, super hot peppers may take the better part of a month, and that can be a potential problem. When you germinate seeds on a seedling heat mat, as soon as they break through the surface and the leaves show, what happens is, unless those leaves are immediately exposed to strong sunlight or strong light from grow lights that are really close to the actual seedlings themselves, they will start growing very tall and spindly and leggy in the absence of light. So if you don't immediately transplant them out of the peat pellets into a larger container and get them into stronger light and off of bottom heat, you can wind up ruining your transplants because they'll get too tall and spindly and you'll have to throw them away. So what I do is I monitor my seedlings every single day, and as soon as I see them break the surface, what I do is I transplant them into a larger container such as this. So what you see right here is a variety of jalapeno called Tajin. What I did was, as soon as the leaves broke the surface and I got successful germination, I picked them up and I transplanted that peat pod directly into regular potting mix. And then I moved them outside where they're off of bottom heat and they're exposed to full sun in my sunroom, and then they will grow healthy and they will not get wiry and spindly. They'll be nice and thick like you see right here. So it's very important that when you're growing multiple things like this that will germinate at all different times, that you move them off that bottom heat and you get them under strong light soon so they do not get wiry and spindly and you do not ruin your transplants. And that right there is everything you need to know to grow hot peppers and super hot peppers successfully from seed. Now, I know that these hot peppers can be a little bit more challenging to grow from seed than most plants because of the varying germination rates and the problems that can ensue when you get those varying germination rates, but I'm telling you right now, it's worth it because there are so many amazing varieties of peppers out there that you can't get in stores. I mean, there are just thousands of them. It will blow your mind. So if you want to grow the coolest stuff, you have to grow it from seed, and once you get the hang of it, it gets a whole lot easier. So don't be intimidated by this. I know it sounds complicated, but you'll do it once and all of these things will become obvious along the way and you'll do great, I promise. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification bell so you're notified when we release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I used in this video or any of the products that I use in real life in my garden in general, they're all linked down below in my Amazon storefront link, so click and expand the video description and then click on that Amazon link and you'll see everything I use in real life. And while you're there, check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel by buying merch. Thanks a lot for watching this video, and I hope to see all of you again on the next one.
Dale, what are you doing? Oh, I just gave Dale a baby carrot dipped in peanut butter and now he's obsessed. I think he just found a new reason to live. Hey, stop it, stop it. Yeah, I know, it still smells like peanut butter on this napkin. I know, buddy, I know. But don't you worry, buddy, there will be plenty more where that came from. I just can't give you any more because you already had your dinner, and we don't want to give you anything with more fat in it, okay? We'll do a little treat later tonight for dessert, okay? You'll get your normal dessert, maybe a little bit more because you've been such a good boy, okay?